Hey, both of you. One of you asked me about what it takes to have a video production company and sort of what gear, what do you need, what is the minimum? And a lot of vloggers, a lot of YouTube people will say again and again that gear doesn't matter. Tell your story, your gear doesn't matter, you can make anything work. And that's true for vlogging, and I would say even for filmmaking, because anything can be a part of your style and a part of the story. But if you want to do professional video production where you're paid by clients, there is a baseline of expectations for the quality of content that you create. And so there's four elements to what you need to actually produce things. And this video is going to quickly go through those four, but you're going to need a camera, you're going to need editing software, you're going to need some lights, and you're going to need some microphones. So camera and editing software largely come down to preference. I use Sony cameras, I've used Canon cameras. I switched from Canon to Sony because I wanted a more cost-effective solution for 4K and slow motion, and Canon makes that a little bit more pricey. I still love Canon cameras for photography and stuff like that. I still have a 5D. It's just a preference, and I'm loving my Sony cameras, and I've yet to find anything that they can't do that I don't love. For editing software, I use Final Cut. I've used Premiere. I used Final Cut before they redid it. I've used Premiere before and after. I like Final Cut. I think for me, it's faster, but again, this is just a preference thing, whatever you're used to. If you use a bunch of Adobe tools, having the interface be the same as Photoshop and all that stuff makes a lot of sense to people. It can be handy. I personally use Pixelmator for all my photo editing, and I use Final Cut Pro for all my video editing. The next two things are really important. The first is microphones. You gotta have a good microphone, and you gotta put it close to the person who's talking. I have a VideoMic Pro that I use. I use it on a 10-foot tether. It's just out of frame here. I don't mount it on the camera. It's right in front of my mouth, and that's what gives this good, rich sound, and I put it right above somebody's head a lot of time when I'm interviewing them. I put it on a boom pole and stick it out. You gotta have a decent microphone, and you gotta put it close to the person, or your video is going to sound very amateur. And I'm sure you won't struggle to find examples of videos where people try to make their own videos and they use their iPhone, or they use the built-in camera, or they just put the mic, they buy a good mic and they put it on top of the camera across the room, and it sounds amateur. It sounds like you're far away. It can be subtle, but that's a big difference between an amateur video and a more professional video. Lastly, lighting. This is huge in affecting the look. If you want something to look amateur versus looking professional, have some good lighting. A lot of times when you're shooting at clients, you're shooting in offices, you don't have access to good soft windows coming in from lights. You may be in a basement, you may be in a place with way too much light, and you may have to go someplace else. But bring lights. You have to have lights. And not more importantly, but as important as having the lights is having some sort of diffusion. I use Neewer diffusion panels, and I've got 3 of them. I've got a huge one that I often use as backdrop, and I have 2 circular ones. One's covering the light that's on my face right now. This is what they look like. It's just a big circle that is somewhat translucent. Light goes through it really well, but you can see even if I adjust the exposure for my face, let me do that. So when I adjust the exposure for this much light, you can still see it's so harsh because it looks like you put a spotlight in my face, because that's what I've done. And that goes a long way to making something look thoughtless and amateur. And so by having a diffusion panel and putting this up in front of the light, you soften the light and everything gets a little bit more nice. I'm gonna put this back up and adjust the exposure for it again. So when we're lit with the light behind the diffusion, it softens it. I don't have the harsh shadows. The light sort of rolls off my face. I don't even know how the physics of that works and what makes putting a sheet in front of it make it round around my nose better. But the difference between undiffused light and diffused light is so important to making a professional video. So make sure when you get your lights, you get some sort of either diffusion paper that you can hang over it, but you don't just use the plastic thing that like goes right up against your LED panel. That doesn't do enough. Put some space between your light source and the diffusion and put it all a little bit further away from you, and you'll get really happy, really professional looking light. That's it. We'll go into the other pieces more in other videos, but I wanted to answer that question. If you want to be a video producer for commercial clients, make sure you've got a decent camera, but it doesn't matter which kind. Have some decent video editing software, have some decent lights with good diffusion, and have a good microphone that you put pretty close to your person's mouth. That's it. Thank you both of you for watching. I'm Sean. If you have any other questions, throw them in the comments. find that focus. Hello, focus.